all of us may have experienced those moments where it's like we're about to lose it and say, I can't take it any longer. And he steps in. Oh, mighty word there. Amen. From the passages that we read earlier, we want to use this thought, kind of meditate on this thought. Encourage yourself. Encourage yourself. Let us pray. God, we're thankful for who you are and who we belong to. We thank you that you watch over us and you keep us and you care for us. So, Lord, as we look at your word today, we ask that you speak to us, that you would stretch us, that you help us to grow and cause us to grow so that we can be better than we have been before. Help us, God, to see that the best is still yet to come, that we've had some great days and some very good days and some difficult days, but God, we realize that as we continue to walk with you, things just get better and better.
Yes,
so speak to our hearts today. Encourage us, lift up our heads so that we may know that we've spent some time with you. God, I ask that you forgive me of my sins and my transgressions and iniquities and allow me to just be an instrument that you have at your disposal. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 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 I think one of the worst, probably one of the worst feelings in the world is having to face something that you're unsure whether or not you have what it takes to deal with it. It's an unsettling feeling when there's an issue or a situation that comes up and creeps up in your life, and we can't run from it, we can't hide from it, and yet we have to face it and deal with it, but we're not sure whether or not we have what it takes in order to overcome it. See, sometimes you and I are going to face life experiences that are difficult to process.
All right, Pastor.
Let alone even handle. It's something about life that does not exempt us from having to face situations and circumstances that need a certain kind of strength and resolve and fortitude, and we're not sure whether or not we have all that it takes. It's easy to deal with stuff that we know we can write a check about. Or we can pull out a credit card and make a payment on it and make sure that it's dealt with. It's something else when something rises up that you don't even have enough money to solve it. That the money that you have in your bank and your bank account or the paycheck that you're expecting doesn't compare to what it is that you have to deal with. Have you ever had to deal with something that you didn't think you had the capacity to conquer it?
All right.
This kind of thing happens in life. And needless to say that these are the kinds of experiences that can often warrant more than we think that we have. I mean, you walk into work one day and the supervisor decides that it's your last day, and there's no amount of conferencing that you can do. There's no memo you can write. There's no negotiation that you can make that reserves your spot on the roster, and therefore you're let go. And it's situations like that that can cause us to wonder, well, do I have enough of what it takes to have to deal with this? Because sometimes we face situations in life and life experiences that challenge our faith.
Yes. Yeah.
But also even challenge our reasoning.
Yeah.
And have us wondering whether or not we can handle what it is that we have to face.
Yeah.
And needless to say, this kind of situation can be overwhelming. This kind of circumstance can be discouraging, especially if you're unsure about your capacity and those that are around you are unsure also. It's these kind of experiences that can cause us to question whether or not am I grown enough
All right,
to
Pat.
deal with this. I know what my position is at work. I understand my position in the home, and I understand how I'm a leader in the community, but this right here, I don't know if I really have what it takes to handle it, and to add insult to injury, I don't have anybody around me encouraging me to do so.
All right.
There's some situations in life where no matter how many people you're around, you're going to have to encourage yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some stuff that mama and daddy and them will not find the right words to help calm the uneasiness. There's some situations that we're going to have to talk to ourselves and encourage ourselves through them, because those that are around us can't find adequate words to encourage us to keep going and to move forward. There's some situations in life where God allows them to happen, and those that are around us can't encourage us. David finds himself in this type of situation. David finds himself surrounded by hundreds of people, but yet they won't say encouraging words to him to help him conquer and overcome the circumstance he finds himself in at the moment.
All right.
And see, there's some things that, listen, that you're going to have to be your own personal cheerleader. There's some situations that, yes, those that are close to you may not even understand the gravity of what you're going through, and you're going to have to be your own personal cheerleader and encourage yourself and tell yourself that, girl, you can make it. Brother, you don't need to throw in the towel and But there are going to be some situations. Mark my word, there are going to be some circumstances. There are going to be some issues that others around you won't have adequate words to encourage you, and you're going to have to encourage yourself. You will have to be your own cheering section sometimes. Because sometimes it'll be stuff that only you know. But then sometimes there'll be stuff that others know, but their words aren't even adequate enough. And you're going to have to speak to yourself and encourage yourself and give yourself enough encouragement to continue going on and to continue pressing on while others around you continue living their lives. David is in this kind of situation. He's in a weird space, really, so to speak, because he and his men are gaining ground with defeating enemies that live in the regions with them, but yet they run into this situation where their camp is destroyed, their women, their wives, and their children, and their livestock are taken from them, and David has to encourage himself in the Lord. He has to find a way that in the midst of all of this, with soldiers around him, he has to find a way to encourage himself. He's in a weird space. Because you see, David has been gaining momentum as a soldier. He's living in a society where they've transitioned leadership. Because remember now, when the Israelites come out of Egypt, Moses is leading them. Moses gets old and he starts training Joshua to lead them, because God tells Moses that, look, you're not going to go to the promised land with them. Because, yeah. So Moses has to get Joshua ready for Joshua to take over leadership. And as Joshua leads them into the promised land, now they are defeating enemies left and right, but yet they run into a spell of cyclical sin where they just keep messing up over and over and over again. So they transition there from Joshua being a leader, because remember, like in the 20-something chapter of Joshua, he says, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Because in their society, they are vacillating back and forth between whether or not they should serve God or should they do their own thing. So as Joshua goes off the scene, what happens is they start voting for these judges to lead them. So then we get into the book of Judges, and they have these different judges that lead them, and they're leaders in the community and in the society, but they don't want to listen to the judges. They don't want to listen to the leadership that they have before them. So they go through this cycle where they will get in trouble, and then the judges tell them, look, you got to do this, you have to do that. This is what God says. And then it's like, oh, all right, we got it. And then they start doing what God says, and then they get in trouble again, and the judges tell them, look, we told y'all before that this is what God says to do, and this is how to do it. And they say, oh, we got it, good. And they keep doing it for a little while, and then all of a sudden that human nature kicks up again, and they get themselves in trouble. So they go through these series of judges, and then finally they begin to say, wait a minute. We see other nations around us that have kings. We want a king. We don't want to do this judge thing anymore. We want a king to rule over us like other nations have kings ruling over them. And God tells them, look, I don't know if y'all really want that, because it doesn't work well for them, why would you think it's going to work well for you? But hard-headed as they are, they want what they want. So they vote this dude named Saul. They vote in this dude named Saul, who is going to be their king, right? Because they want a king that's great negotiator. They want a king that's
Come on now.
he's above everybody else when it comes to making business deals. They want a king who's going to lead them in the right way, and they need a king because everybody else has kings, and they figure that he looks the part. We're not going to go back to what happened before, because we didn't like that anyway. We got to undo some of that stuff that's been done from before.
Yes, yes.
So we need a king that's going to use executive orders to undo stuff that's been done in the past that was helping people. We need somebody who's going to dismantle that, because we want to make Jerusalem great again. We want to make them great again. And they lost a lot when they had judges. So we need a king. So God says, I'm going to give you what you're asking for.
Yes.
That's who y'all want. He going to take advantage of you. He going to make deals that will only be for his benefit and the benefit of his billionaire cronies. So yeah, you vote for him if you want to, but come tax time, when you... All right, let's get back in here. Let's get back in here, because God will give you what you ask for.
That's right.
And you have to be careful what you ask for, because he'll give it to you.
Yeah.
So now they have this King Saul who is ruling them, and he is oppressing the people. But yet, there's this young boy in the cut named David, who doesn't have the position, but he's in training.
All right, then. All right, good.
And David is making all this progress, because David is a soldier. Some have called him a man after God's own heart, and he's a soldier, and he's a musician. He's multi-talented. David is, and David loves people. He loves people so much that they talk about his friendship with the king's, was it his brother, Jonathan? He talks about his friendship with Jonathan, who was related to the king, but yet David didn't allow that to get in the way. So David is making momentum, right? And they are defeating enemies, and they're conquering people while Saul is still king. See, it doesn't matter who's in the position. If you believe in God and you walk with God, you can still do your thing, even if there's a fool in office that's holding the position. So David is making progress, and in the midst of that, they come across, when they're on their way back to Ziklag, they find that their community has been plundered, and it has been, that their resources have been taken. So here they are. They've been making progress, but then all of a sudden they have this loss. And David has his military men with him, and the text tells us that he had to encourage himself in the Lord. And we even see that some of the men weren't strong enough to keep going on the journey. So let's look at this for just the next few moments, because we're not going to take long with it. But there's sometimes where there's some stuff that you and I face that we have to encourage ourselves. Because those that may be around us don't have adequate words, and sometimes those that are around us don't even care as much as we do with what we're going through. So sometimes you have to encourage yourself. So let's see what it takes to that David shows us what it took for him to to find encouragement. See, he doesn't need motivation, he needs encouragement. See, motivation is a little bit different than encouragement. Motivation, people who need motivation are, let me see how I can say this. People who need to be motivated to do something are people who ain't doing nothing. That's the best I could come up with. Because motivation and encouragement is a little bit different. Motivation is for people who just ain't doing anything, and they need to be kick-started to do. Encouragement is for people who are doing, but at the moment they might lack some courage, so they need courage instilled in them. Because they're doers, but they've come up against something that wait a minute, they're a little bit unsure, and they just need encouragement. See, if you find yourself connected to somebody who needs motivation, for real. So David needs to be encouraged, and the text tells us that he encourages himself in the Lord. So how is it, what is it we need in order to encourage ourselves? Chris, can you pull up the first thing right here? First thing is spiritual enlightenment is required in order for, how do we encourage ourselves? Is through spiritual enlightenment. See, there's some stuff that may be happening in the natural, but you need the spiritual enlightenment to help you deal with what's going on in the natural. So let's see if you can pull up verses 7 and 8 real quick. It says, David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod. Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord, look, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them, he answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. Here, David realizes that their community has been raided. Their wives and their livestock have been taken. Their children have been taken. And what David says to the priest, Abiathar, he says to him, look, bring me the ephod. Now, the ephod is a robe that priests wore. And they wore this robe when they were ministering to the people. So what David asks Abiathar to do is bring him a priestly garment, because David is going to ask God about what he's going through. Here's the thing. In order for us to cope with and conquer and deal with the stuff that we experience in the natural, there are spiritual components and spiritual fortitude that we need in order to deal with what's facing us in the natural. And here's the beautiful thing about this, is that David asked the priest to bring the robe to him. Oh! Watch it. This is the beautiful part about it. This is the beautiful part about it. It doesn't matter what you're in the midst of.
All right.
Spiritual enlightenment can happen anywhere, anytime, even in the midst of mess. But we've got to be willing to want it so that we can encourage ourselves in what we're dealing with. See, he says to him, look, bring the ephod here. Bring it here. Bring it here. He doesn't have to go to it. He says, bring it here. In the midst of our community being plundered, in the midst of our village being ramshacked, in the midst of this loss that we are experiencing, I can still get in touch with God and have the capacity to deal with what I'm going through.
All right.
It's a beautiful thing about God. It doesn't matter what we're in the midst of. It doesn't matter what we're going through. It doesn't matter what's happening around us. God has the capacity to talk to us even in the midst of what we're going through. So in order for me to encourage myself, there are times where I'm going to need spiritual enlightenment in order for me to handle what I'm facing. He says to God, he says, look, he says, shall I pursue this raiding party? He says, shall I pursue? And this is what God tells him. He says, look, you gonna win.
All right now.
Oh man, that's why spiritual enlightenment is so critical when we're facing something that we're unsure of whether or not we can handle it. That's why we have to be enlightened spiritually, because when we have God, we win.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
See, sometimes we look at stuff only from our mere meager strength. Oh, it doesn't matter what it is. Sometimes we look at it and say, well, do I have what it takes? Here's the thing. When I come along God and I ask him and I'm in relationship with him, and when I'm enlightened by him, I don't have to worry about whether I have the capacity.
All right.
Because I'm connected with the one who has the capacity. I'm connected with the one who's going to help me win, although I might not have all that it takes. But as long as I'm getting enlightened by him and I'm conversing with him and he's talking to me and I'm walking with him and he's walking with me, it doesn't matter what I'm going through. People can be surrounding me. I could be on a job where my supervisor hates me, can't stand me, is trying to get rid of me. But when I'm connected to God, don't you know God will prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies?
Yeah, preach, Pastor.
So in order to encourage ourselves, we need spiritual enlightenment. Second thing that's necessary for us to encourage ourselves is not only do we need spiritual enlightenment, but, now this might hurt some people's feelings,
Go ahead.
but sometimes we have to separate ourselves. I felt something over here on this side.
Go ahead.
Sometimes a separation needs to take place.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
Because I don't know if you've ever carried dead weight.
Go ahead. Go ahead. All right now.
Dead weight is hard to carry because it's dead. It doesn't help you. It doesn't lend any assistance. So let's look at it in verses 9 and 10, because there's a separation that has to take place. David and the 600 men with him came to Besor Valley, where some stayed behind. Verse 10 says, 200 of them were just too exhausted to cross the valley. But David and the other 400 continued the pursuit. Some of us have to separate ourselves from those that just aren't going where we're going. Some of us, I dare not say it this way, but I'm being pushed to do it. We got to lose some weight. Because there's some weighty people in our lives, right, that just, they too tired.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
They don't have enough in it. They don't want to go nowhere. And guess what? They don't want you to go anywhere either. So what they will do is they will cling to you, and it adds extra weight to the weight that we're already carrying. See, people like that, People, he has with him 600, right? But 200 of them were just too exhausted.
All right then.
Remember, David's gaining momentum. They're kicking butts and taking names. But yet 200 of them are like, look, we tired. David is like, we gotta go. 200 of them like, look, we tired. Sometimes you gotta separate yourself from those that have become so weighty in your life, because they're not pushing you to go forward. They're not encouraging you to go forward. They're not even speaking into your life to go forward. What they are doing is draining you of the energy that you need to go forward. And
All right, Pastor. Yes, preach.
there has to be a separation. 200 of them were too exhausted. But David had 400 that said, let's go.
Amen.
In the middle of this, I mean, can you imagine you have 600 and it's not like y'all been losing. They've been winning.
Yes, Lord.
They've been defeating everyone. But for some people just think life don't take all that. Listen, we get one shot at this thing. One shot and then we leave here.
That's right.
And I don't know about you, but I want to die empty.
Yes.
I don't even care if I try something and it failed. At least I know that didn't work.
Amen. Amen.
Rather than sitting back, because there's some people who will just sit back because they so tired, they'll make you tired. Okay. See, you ever been around somebody and their relationship is going bad? Right? And the first thing they want is for yours to go bad. Look, that's the nature. Yeah, it loves company. So because their thing is messed up, right? Then what they do is start pointing out stuff in your thing.
Go ahead.
Right, because their thing ain't working, so they definitely don't want your thing working. And rather than them work to try and fix their thing, they want to sabotage your thing. There were 200 that said, look, we're too exhausted. There was 400 that, all right, let's go. You have to be able to decide in your life who is and who ain't.
Amen.
Because there's some is's in your life,
All right.
and there's some ain't.
All right, Pastor. Preach. Preach.
Go ahead.
And if you spend too much time listening to the ain'ts, then you ain't. So there's a separation that takes place. See, some people are in your life for a season,
Yes.
right? They've been winning.
Right.
Everything's good. Uh-oh, it's getting ready to get even tougher now. And 200 of them say, look, man, we tired. You know, we're tired. Okay, that's fine, but I have a destiny
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
that I'm trying to fulfill and live. And because you might be too exhausted, then there may need to be a separation that takes place that says that I got to keep going, although you might be too exhausted. So David takes the 400 and they continue on because God told him, look, you're going to win. God told him you're going to win. He asked God, shall I pursue them? Will I win? God said, surely. You will win. Last thing. Sometimes there's stuff that we face and that we deal with that there are people around us who are not going to encourage us. And we have to encourage ourselves. We do that through spiritual enlightenment, through the separation of those. Sometimes there are people that you just have to say, okay, you know what? The season has come and gone. And that doesn't mean that you don't speak to people anymore or anything like that. It's about how much more influence do they have. You know, you can say, hey, look, I don't have to allow you as much access because your fatigue is starting to make me feel tired. And then we'll be two tired people together.
All right. Go ahead.
So here, last thing is spiritual enlightenment, separation. But the final thing, and this is the craziest part to this, is sometimes you have to encourage yourself through spiritual enlightenment with God, through separation from other people. But then this last thing kind of blew my mind because when we think about encouraging ourselves, this doesn't always come to mind. We got to serve somebody else. Yeah. You encourage yourself by turning around in the midst of your stuff.
All right.
And serve somebody else.
All right. Yes. Yes.
It's something about taking your situation and using it as a platform to serve somebody else who's going through a bad situation.
Yes.
Because let's look at it in verses 11 through 12. It says, they found an Egyptian in a field and brought him to David. They gave him water to drink and food to eat, part of a cake of pressed figs and 2 cakes of raisins. Check this out. He ate and was revived, for he had not eaten any food or drunk any water for 3 days and 3 nights. And what they do is, instead of focusing on what they've lost, they take what they have and use it to serve somebody else. Amen. One of the ways to encourage yourself with whatever it is that you're going through is take whatever capacity you have and use it to be a blessing to somebody else.
Yes.
See, it's something about blessing others when you're in need of a blessing.
Yes.
There's something about the economy of God and how God operates and how God works things out that when you find yourself in a pinch, the thing is to serve somebody else.
Yes.
There's something about when you find yourself confronting and being challenged by some situation or circumstance that you don't think you have a capacity to handle it. There's something about taking what you have, what God has blessed you with, whatever it is that you have, and use that to be a blessing to somebody else. Because when you start focusing on somebody else, it starts to take the focus off the stuff that you've lost and off the stuff you're going through because you're caught up in trying to help somebody else. And when you're caught up in trying to help somebody else, it doesn't bother you the stuff that you got to push through and the stuff you got to step over and the stuff you got to break through in order to be a blessing. Because what happens to you is you get concerned with blessing somebody else until you stop focusing on so much on what you're going through because you realize something. I've got something. See, here's the thing about difficult stuff. Difficult stuff tries to tell us that we don't have what it takes and that we don't have enough. But when you start walking with God, don't you know that God can take raisin cakes and bread and water and cause that to be a blessing to somebody else? Listen, I'm through because we got to go. The other day, I think it was last week, may have been last week, we were having a problem with the shower at home, and the shower wasn't draining properly.
Okay, because you know how shower drains can do. Sometimes they get built up from dead skin and dirt and hair and all that stuff. So it wasn't draining properly. So what I did was I went to the store and I got some liquid plumber. I got some liquid plumber because I know that liquid plumber can solve the problem of a slow draining shower. See, I know that. Even with my limited ability of fixing stuff, I know that you can go to your local grocery store, pick up some liquid plumber, pour it in the drain, right? And then run some water about 15 minutes later, and it will clear and unclog the drain. Well, I did that, and guess what? It didn't really work. So I'm scratching like, uh-oh. I've got to do more than just pour some liquid plumber in the drain. So I remembered that in my garage, all right. Yes, sir, that I have some tools. Now, I might not have all the tools y'all have. All right. Okay, I got some. Because I'm not the handiest of. I'm a little bit more handy than Rick, though. I got more tools than he does. I might not have as many as them and stuff, but I got more. I know I got more tools than him. So I realized that Spencer, I have this snake in the garage that will help unclog the drain. So I pop off the whatever you call that thing, the what you call it to the drain. Okay. I pop that thing off, right? And I start to put the snake down in there, and you turn it and turn it, and it gets stuck. And I'm like, good God, is it a body down there? But now it should, it's like a 25, 30 foot, 2-3 mile snake. Probably it's about like 3-4 miles, probably. So I'm pushing it down and it gets stuck. So then I'm like, man, liquid plumber's not working. The snake is stuck. What do I do? So, no, I didn't call any of them. So I said, okay, I'm just going to keep working at it because eventually there has to be a breakthrough eventually. Oh, man. I'm telling you, that this clog, it can't stay here forever. So I keep pounding at it and pushing and pushing. And then all of a sudden, some like dirty, gooky stuff starts coming up. And I'm like, oh, God, who's been showering in here? And it's like all dirt and all kind of hair. And I'm like, good God. So the more I push, the more gook comes up. Right? The more I push, the more gook comes up. So it's either you stop pushing or you just deal with the gook. Jeannie, I just dealt with the gook. I said, you know what? This gook ain't going to take over me. So I'm pushing it even more, Spencer, and I'm pushing it, and I'm pushing and pushing, and all of a sudden, it's like, whoosh. It's like, and then get this, Jeannie, the gook starts going away. I'm like, oh my God, isn't that just like life? like sometimes life can get so gooky, and there's stuff that you just have to keep pushing your way, and you can't give up. No matter how dirty it gets, no matter how nasty it gets, no matter how smelly it gets, you can't give up. You gotta just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, because eventually the breakthrough is coming. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And my brothers and sisters, I don't care what it is that you face, divorce, disease, no matter what it is, loss of job, just keep pushing. Serve somebody who's in worse off shape than you are in. And guess what? That which you're going through won't seem as difficult as it was before, because you focused on making it better for somebody else.
Yes, all right, yes.
Sometimes you gotta encourage yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes people around you won't have the words for you. And in this day and age that we live in, people will know you're going through and keep walking right on by you. Amen. So what do? you encourage yourself.
Yes.
Lord. Yes, Lord.
Yes.
You say to yourself that I'm with me,
Yes.
Amen.
and that as long as I have God,
Yes.
yeah, there may be some people I might have to separate from, but as long as I have Him,
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
and if I take whatever it is, all they took was some bread and water and some raisins,
Yes, Lord.
and became a blessing to this Egyptian.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll look at the rest of the story, because the Egyptian leads them to their stuff.
Yes.
Oh, man, that's just how good God is.
Yes, Lord. Yes,
The blessing that they were to him ends up being a blessing for them, because he leads them to go get their stuff back.
Amen.
That's how good God is. That even when we're facing something that we may not think we have enough to handle it, that if we get in touch with him, even in the midst of it, that if we separate and that we serve, guess what? We can be encouraged to keep moving forward.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Thank you.
There may be some people you leave behind. That happens. But we keep